Finally, the end is in sight. All I have to do is make it through 7.5 minutes of Calvinist boy here and his industrial conveyor belt of assertions, evidence not included. I am ready, so bring on the intro.
This one, I'll pray for you. Thanks. I mean, I appreciate that your heart's in the right place, but it's not going to do anything. You know, if I'm going through a rough time, don't tell me you'll pray for me. If you really want to make a difference, tell me how you're actually going to help me. Like, for example, if I'm really sick and you wanted to bring me soup or something, that's a really sweet thing for you to do. Don't pray for me to get better, but like, hey, if you want to drop some food off, that would be awesome. If you want to send me a pizza right now, I would totally appreciate it. That would make much more of a difference than anything God could do. You know, and I've heard the retort, you know, oh, you'll pray for me? Great, I'll think for you. That's kind of dickish though, so I don't say that very often. Another one, do you worship the devil?
That one's kind of funny, I guess, but yeah, I guess. I mean, I know that some Christians say that out of spite and to be kind of sarcastic, but some Christians really do mean it. But telling somebody that you're going to pray for them and then walking away without meeting their physical needs, then yeah, I would say that probably the book of James would have something to say about that. So to some degree, I validate that too. It's just like, whatever, why can't we say that to atheists? We can say whatever we want.
Yeah, but if we detect that you're simply doing this as a coded fuck you, that's not going to do you anything to help conversation. All it will do is drag the conversation towards their behaviour rather than the need for you or any religion to supply evidence in support of their position. That's if it doesn't just end the discussion as you noted. I actually respond worse to clear passive aggression than I do direct aggression. I don't know if I'm alone in that, but I thought it was interesting to know as this passed by.
Do you worship the devil? A lady said this to me like a couple weeks ago. I don't believe in the devil. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in miracles. I don't believe in a lot of supernatural things. But Satan is as silly as God is. So look, I'm sure there are some Satanists out there. I don't know who they are because I've never met one, but it's not the atheist. The atheist thinks Satan's as silly as God is. So we don't worship Satan. You're not really...
I got nothing.
An atheist. You must really be an agnostic. And they say that because if I say I'm not 100% sure God doesn't exist, I'm pretty clearly on that side of the spectrum. But yeah, I'm reasonably certain God doesn't exist. Oh, well, if you're not 100% definitive, you must be an agnostic. But this idea that if we're not 100% sure God doesn't exist, we're an agnostic. Like, no, you don't know me. Don't label me by your weird warped definitions. I'll decide the label for myself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care about that. I mean, you call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. We call ourselves whatever we want to call ourselves, so yeah, it's whatever. I mean, I don't really have an opinion on this.
Sounds fine by me. After all, I call myself an ex-Christian atheist, specifically an ex-Christian that has adopted the humanist philosophy.
Atheism a religion? Like, no. Atheism is a religion like off is a TV channel and bald is a hair color. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. It's a rejection of religion. It's not religion. To me, religion means believing in this higher power. It's silly. Atheism is not a religion, so don't say that it is, because we'll just laugh at you. The last one I wrote down.
Yeah, I mean, I understand where the Christian who said this to you is coming from. Yeah, I know that you say atheism is a rejection of a claim or rejection of religion, but in reality, your worldview is worshiping something. Really, it's worshiping the intellectual, autonomous man instead of God. So you're still worshiping something. It's just not God. It's just not a God made out of clay or of liturgy, but you are a worshiper. And in that sense, it is a religion. I wouldn't put that kind of label on it, but I understand where they're coming from. You're not exempt from this, so I will say that.
Now you see, I disagree with the atheist voice in that I don't class religion as simply a belief centered around a higher power. I go with a substantive sociological definition after comparing the works of Edward Burnett Tylor, Emile Durkheim, and Martin Southwold. I side more with Tylor, yet I adopt parts from the other two in updating Tylor's minimum definition of religion, the belief in spiritual beings, to a more contemporary, a belief, ideology or worldview which centers around the supernatural. That includes spiritual Buddhism, Scientology, Christianity, Hinduism, any of the key religions you can think of, and I haven't found an example where my definition has failed me in describing the world we live in. Other ideologies are philosophies or political doctrines, and just like religion, there are many forms these ideologies take. But going back to atheism, how does atheism forward worship of the autonomous man? There are many atheists who are deterministic. This reveals a great flaw in your apparent knowledge and how you seem to want to construct this idea of what an atheist is from the label atheist, which merely describes what a person is not. I am a humanist. I hold human life to have innate value. I view evidence-based reasoning to be the best foundation for belief, and I view education as humankind's emancipator. And yet part of my reasoning is in recognizing the fallibility of humankind. That's part of learning, admitting that you were wrong or that you misjudged something, and building on that mistake. That's why people such as yourself are difficult to educate, because you believe you have the ultimate answers simply because you were told you do. But returning to your accusation, if your idea of worship and religion is so watered down to include basic methodology that recognizes human fallibility as worship, then I guess I, as a humanist, could be said to be religious. It makes no sense to me personally to define things that way, as we have words for that, and thus this seems to be a little more than an attempt at blurring the lines. But hey, I can just differentiate between us on the fact that I supply and accept evidence, whilst you refuse to supply and even reject the very same.
I don't know, why are you so angry? Because atheists get this all the time. Like, here's why we're angry. It's not because we hate God. It's not because, we have some beef with the higher power. It's because religious people do a lot of crazy things in the name of God. And I'm not even talking about like terrorism or like those extremes. I'm just saying, whether they're passing laws in America, whether they're passing laws that restrict LGBT rights and women's rights, whether they make bad science.
Name one law that religious people have tried to pass that restricts women's rights. With the exception of maybe the Muslim religion, I don't know.
Every bill targeting reproductive rights, i.e. family planning and safe abortions, the latter part of which is a form of slavery in that you are forcing cis women along with some trans men and non-binary individuals to carry out labour at a risk to themselves in completely destroying their bodily autonomy. That is even though if we had a body recently deceased and an actual infant in need of organs, they could not take from that body unless there'd been prior consent or consent by a relative. Christianity has run the campaign arguing that people with a working womb, so predominantly cis women, have less of a right to bodily autonomy than the recently deceased. And that includes recently deceased women. Most women have more bodily autonomy when they die. Then we have nearly every anti-trans bill, which, whilst it also affects trans men, predominantly the targets in these campaigns are trans women who are slandered as predators coming to steal your white Christian women and your white Christian girls. This also doubles up in Christians claiming ownership to said women, since when they, white Christians, sexually assault them, they get into and remain in public office. But hey, we can't let trans women have their rights because cis Christians like to imagine themselves assaulting women if they gained access to them. So, yeah, don't try pulling this shit.
But, no, that just doesn't make any sense. And LGBT rights, I mean, that's a whole conversation in and of itself.
No, it's really not. You either allow human civil rights for LGBT plus people as is recognized internationally, or you violate their human and civil rights. There is no grey when it comes to abuses of a demographic's human rights. Anyone who wants to pretend otherwise is more than welcome to give up their rights as a demonstration of this fact. We existed long before your fucked up religion came along. We'll survive you.
But I will say this. Christians are citizens of this country just like you are and have all the same rights that you do. That includes putting into effect laws that would suit our worldview.
But I will say this. The Nazis were citizens of Germany, just like the Jews were, and had all the same rights the Jews had. That includes putting into effect laws that suited their worldview. Do you see just how stupid that sounds? You are right. You, as a person, can influence policy. But if you push human rights violations, like hell are we going to stay quiet? You're not just pushing for influence, you're pushing for influence without question. I think it all goes back to your dictator model of morality, where you replace Hitler for God and slapped on the label objective. The fact is, LGBT plus people and women exist. They're known to exist. They've been proven to exist. Your God, not so. And yet you would deny these real demographics, their human rights, on the basis that it may cause some unproven and apparently all-powerful God moral outrage. You seriously need better priorities. If there is an all-powerful God, they can fucking get over it.
So here's the thing, is that I know you think that you are absent of religious convictions and think that you have the moral high ground in this area, but you don't. You are proclaiming and propagating a worldview by what laws you put into place, just like we are. Nobody's exempt from that. So when Christians want to put in laws that are going to better our country by, in your opinion, restricting LGBT rights, hey, I'm sorry, but that's our right to do that. And it would be best for the entire country if those laws were put into place, in our opinion. So you have the right to vote and to do whatever political thing you need to do to get those laws passed, just like we do. You don't have to bash religion for that or be angry because of that. We're not angry with atheists because they pass these terrible freaking like transgender bathroom laws. Oh my gosh, what are you thinking? But that aside, you don't really have a right to get mad for us for that at this point.
Your religion is pro-genocide, pro-rape, pro-slavery, and you openly and gleefully bash human rights in the name of that which you have no evidence even exists, and yet you claim, I have no right to get angry. Fuck you willful ignorance, fuck your tone policing, but most of all, fuck your religion. You are a sick and twisted human who, in spite of just admitting they had no higher standard of morality, still thinks they and their religion shouldn't be called out for violating human rights and demonstrably harming every country with their policies. It just needed to be said.
Curriculum decisions or passing revisionist history curriculums, they do things that make me really upset because I value the truth and I value people's rights.
You assume you have the truth. We assume we have the truth. What makes you better than us? I mean, you have evidence, I guess, that has been thoroughly refuted. We have evidence that you believe is refuted. But we both have evidence, and we both have worldviews, we both have values and morals, and we both have different worldviews. Yours isn't better than ours. So why are you angry because you believe you have the truth? We believe you don't. So do we have a right to be mad at you?
So if you had some actual evidence, which you supplied, reminder that nowhere in this video have you supplied evidence beyond name-dropping Richard Dawkins as apparently being angry at God, citation still needed, you are objectively wrong. How can I say that? If God had an impact on reality, i.e. was real, then they would be measurable by science. Since we see no evidence for God in science, and you're not likely to supply it in the last, 1 minute 8 seconds of your 26-minute video, I think we can safely say that you don't have that evidence either. Ergo, there is no evidence for God. There is no reason to believe in God, Christian or otherwise, so the fact that you think we're wrong is about as relevant as a flat earther thinking NASA is a conspiracy. It isn't. All this is evidence for is your willful ignorance.
And it's very clear that the Christians in power often don't. That's why I'm angry. And I hope if you're religious, you can learn something from this and don't say those things to atheists. It's offensive, it's disrespectful in a lot of cases, and it shows that you assume a lot of things about us before you've actually had that conversation with us.
Okay, so finish the video, and probably what I would have to say is that it just really seems that this guy is only dealing with low-level fruit Christians. I'm sorry, but none of those objections were really that grand, and maybe he did make the video because it is low-level fruit Christianity, and it's just kind of ridiculous. I hope that anybody watching this video got something out of it, because I definitely did not. But had fun, like always.
At least both of us agree that these arguments are ridiculous. The only problem is, I acknowledge that this is the level of every argument theists have. There is no higher, and if there had been, in your knowledge, you would have supplied it with valid evidence in this video. Since you have failed to do that, we can safely conclude that you're just talking shit about the atheist voice because you feel threatened by him, and yet you have no meaningful way to counter what he said. It's pretty sad actually, but it's a standard I've come to expect from all apologists, from all walks of life, and all levels of renown. I said it before, I will say it again. There is no such thing as high-hanging apologetics, since it is a field fundamentally grown in bullshit, which, thankfully, stays on the floor. And honestly, I'm not that surprised, having responded to the first part of this video in my previous 2 responses, and really, you need to do some reassessing, because I know you've done this whole sort of switch to turn this into well, I wasn't actually being serious, this was just for entertainment. But from the accusations you are charging the atheist voice with, such as not dealing with actual high-hanging apologetics, which is a myth by the way, no, you are quite clear in your intention in your original video, and just because you got your ass handed to you, it seems like you're trying to switch to a different thing to save face. Nah, it doesn't bode well, so yeah. Well, hello there. I just wanted to say a few things here at the end of the video before you go. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who's ever donated to the channel via Patreon, giving a special thanks to the following people: Hannah Banghart, Trevor Mathewson, Andrew Spreitzer, Matthew Kovac, John Sconrock, Alexander Williams, and of course Daniel Martinez. Your support has ensured this channel its ability to grow over the years. I'd also like to ask that you comment down below and like the video, as well as subscribe and follow Essence of Thought on Facebook. Please also consider following Atheist Alliance International on Facebook, an organisation dedicated to helping atheists around the globe. Last of all, I'd like to request that you treat the person I responded to in this video with a reasonable degree of respect. Whilst we understand that there are justifiable limits to said respect when tackling certain heavy topics, and anger can be of a genuine emotion in fighting injustice, any comments utilising language which insults others on the basis of perceived gender, sexuality, ethnicity or ability, both mental and physical, will be removed and the commenter may be blocked on the moderator's discretion. Let's keep this space one which upholds the humanist values. Thank you for watching.